What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Today we're going over the 5 players I think have massive upside this season. As with many of these top 5 videos, I'm going to exclude any player with an ADP in the top 3 rounds. Every single one of them has a ton of upside. It is a complete waste of your time for me to tell you that Davante Adams might go off the season. No kidding. So we are sticking with anyone whose ADP is outside the top 35. I also will not be mentioning Mike Williams, Michael Pittman Jr., or Deontay Johnson because we have a breakdown next week going over those 3 players exactly, so we're saving them for that video. So, who makes the list? We'll start off with quarterback, where my pick is Jalen Hurts. I want everyone to understand the potential impact that A.J. Brown is going to have on this offense. Last season, Davante Adams was a rookie, and he performed exceptionally well as a rookie. He was dominant against the press. He was, even for being a really small receiver, that was something that some people had concerns with. Could he get open against press coverage? Dominant against press coverage. And he was also well above average against man coverage. He may not have had, the rookie season that Jamar Chase had, for example, but he proved that he's already an elite separator in the NFL, and he's going to be an elite NFL wide receiver, maybe as soon as this season. But look at what the offense was around him. Dallas Goedert is a fantastic tight end. That was not a problem. But the next most targeted players were Quez Watkins, Jalen Reagor, Kenneth Gainwell. That's not good, and it's certainly not a cast that defenses are going to fear. Smith was the focal point of just like what defenses had to take away through the passing game, basically. So if you're a defensive coordinator going against the Eagles last season, that is a very difficult task for Devonta Smith to be out there as the number one thing defensive coordinators are taking away, again, as a rookie with the first season that Jalen Hurts is a quarterback. That's a really difficult situation, and he performed really well given that. But now you replace Jalen Reagor with A.J. Brown, someone who beats man and press at a 96th and 98th percentile clip, respectively. That is one of the biggest upgrades you can possibly make, and it's compounded by what it does for Devonta Smith. That's the most important thing here. It's not just adding A.J. Brown adds a great talent. It opens up so much for Smith to operate. Smith will now never be double teamed. He will never be the top focus for defensive coordinators. And so Hurts is going to go from having Smith and Goddard, that's pretty good, but now everyone's open. A.J. Brown's getting open on his own, even through double teams. Devonta Smith is always open against a number 2. Dallas Goedert, he's like the third option for coordinators. He's going to run wild in the middle of the field. He's always going to have people open. This is one of the best trios in the NFL now. And now he's in year 2 as a starter. Remember, that was his first year as a starter last season. All of this with a quarterback that just ran for 784 yards and 10 touchdowns. All 8 quarterbacks that finished ahead of him last season had at least twice as many passing touchdowns as Jalen Hurts. What do you think is going to happen when he drops back and now everyone is open? This offense looked like absolute trash for chunks last season, and he was still a good producer in fantasy. That's not going to be the case now with A.J. Brown joining the team. This is an offense to fear, and they're going to be really, really good with Hurts, and you're going to really want him in fantasy. At wide receiver, 2 names for you. First up, Allen Robinson. He, of course, left the Bears in free agency and signed a 3-year, which is effectively a 2-year deal with the Rams. $31 million guaranteed. He will be locked into the X receiver role for the Rams unless they sign Odell. But I'm going to do this breakdown assuming Odell does not return. If we get that news at some point this offseason that Odell Beckham Jr. is returning to the Rams, you have to bump down Allen Robinson in the rankings. I'm assuming that's not happening, and that's what I'm going to say for this video. So I mentioned in the live stream on Tuesday night that Allen Robinson I thought was a really good pick, but I wanted to wait to go all in on him until I saw Matt Harmon's reception perception breakdown, because basically my thinking was that he didn't take a step back last season, or like a massive step back, because he performed horribly, right? Those numbers last season were awful. But I didn't think that he was awful. I thought that the offense was just a dumpster fire, and so he never really had a chance to produce. But I wanted confirmation on that because, I'm not like a film expert or anything. So I went and looked, and Matt confirmed everything that I was thinking. Yes, he took a small step back, particularly in his success rate versus man coverage, but a small step back for him means he wasn't a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL like he had been in recent seasons. He still had an 81st percentile success rate and just destroyed press coverage. So he was still phenomenal. He was still an exceptional wide receiver. The offense was just so unbelievably terrible, and the Bears just did not put him in position to succeed. They put no one in position to succeed last season. That's why he performed so poorly. But we know the Rams are going to put Allen Robinson in the best possible position to succeed, and he's finally going to be playing with an above-average quarterback. Thus far in his career, he has caught passes from Justin Fields, who's probably the best quarterback on the list I'm about to talk about, but with Matt Nagy head coach, that's not the case anymore for him, but last season it was. So Fields with Nagy, that's not a good combo. Andy Dalton, Nick Foles, Trubisky, Chase Daniel, Blake Bortles, Chad Henne. What's he supposed to do? I mean, with that group of players, I know there's some garbage time thrown in there, but realistically, that is an awful group of pass catchers. And we have seen what adding Matthew Stafford can do to a really good offense with good playmakers. We've seen it. That same thing's going to happen with Allen Robinson. He's not going to go out there and be like the greatest wide receiver of all time like Cooper Kupp was last season, but we've seen the upgrade. This is going to be an exceptional offense, and Allen Robinson is going to be a large part of that offense, and he is still an elite wide receiver. And pairing him with Stafford, like it's going to have, Stafford and Kupp really, it's going to have a similar effect that I just talked about with Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown. He's going to be joining a team where he's not like the focal point for defensive coordinators. Everyone's got to worry about Cooper Kupp just shredding you alive. He's never going to be, this main focus, getting consistent double teams. He's going to have so much more room to operate, and it's going to be so beneficial also playing with Matthew Stafford. So really beautiful landing spot for him. The ceiling is absolutely insane now that he finally has like a half decent quarterback throwing the football. The other wide receiver we'll talk about is Adam Thielen. He's absolutely seen a decline in efficiency last 4 seasons. I believe 4 straight years he's dropped in his yards per target. He's only averaged 53.7 receiving yards per game over the last 3 years. So that's bad. But he's also the 35th to 37th, depends where you look, wide receiver off the board right now. He's going in like the mid-30s for wide receivers. Even though he is a clear red zone target, that is not changing. Every time they get even remotely close to the red zone, the only person that Kirk Cousins ever looks at is Adam Thielen. That's not changing. On an extremely consolidated offense, not like they went out there and they brought in a bunch of names, pretty much the same players they had last season. On an offense that also is likely going to play a little faster and likely, definitely actually, going to be more pass heavy. But don't even consider all of that. Sure, the efficiency is down, but he's been a stud. Like, he has been phenomenal in recent seasons. Since 2017, half PPR points per game rank in each season. 11th, 8th, 42nd, which we'll get to in a second, 7th, and 14th. So he's crushed his ADP 4 of the last 5 years, or at least his ADP now, because he used to be going earlier, but right now for some reason no one wants him. In 2019, that sticks out, but it's because he had 2 games in that sample just tanking his per game numbers, where he combined for 16 snaps. He got hurt. It's pretty difficult to have good points per game. We've got those 2 games. Then he was a decoy in week 15 and 16. I think in week 16 he had 0 receptions. He was just out there so that they had a body to decoy players, but he wasn't getting targets in those games. If you remove those games where he got hurt or was playing as a decoy, he jumps up to 7th in half PPR points per game. So you're basically getting a wide receiver who has been at worst 14th in points per game over the last 5 years on offense that's going to play faster and throw more with a quarterback that loves him. And you're getting him 37th or 35th off the board for wide receivers. And I know the number one responsibility, well, that's when he's healthy, right? He's never healthy. He's always hurt. First off, no, he's not. 2019 was rough, but even if you include that season, he has missed 11 games over the last 5 years. Barely over 2 per year. And also, who cares? If you told me he misses a month, who cares? If people are willing to gift you a top 15 wide receiver as the 37th or 35th wide receiver off the board. But the catch is you can't play him in 4 weeks? Say thank you. I should not have to tell you that Adam Thielen is an elite pick this season. He should be going way earlier than he is. A tight end. How about Kmet? And I know as soon as I say that, people are going to be like, Nick, I thought this was an upside video. Oh, it is. Kmet has a ton of upside this season. He had 93 targets last year, posted a pretty solid 60 for 612 stat line. It's not good for a wide receiver, but for a tight end, it's a wasteland of a position. That's pretty good. Catch was he didn't score a touchdown. 0 receiving or total touchdowns. And I was looking at that like, good grief, Cole, like find the end zone. It's that big rectangle at the end of the field there. But then you look at his underlying metrics and you're like, wow, he got exceptionally unlucky. He was the Bears' most targeted player in the red zone last season. And if you look at this year, their 3rd, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th most targeted red zone weapons from last year are gone. Then you look at their wide receiver core, and you see that only Equanimeous St. Brown, he's the only one that stands at more than 6'1". Kmet is 6'6". He is going to be their clear red zone target this season. Not a red zone target, the clear red zone target for the Bears this season. He should also be a target hog because who else do they have to throw to? Certainly not another tight end, given his competition is Ryan Griffin and James O'Shaughnessy. And also this offense is no longer led by Matt Nagy, so they are a lock to improve. Yet despite all those factors, he is the 17th tight end off boards because everyone just looks at box scores, sees 0 touchdowns, and refuses to draft a Bears player. He is the single most undervalued tight end in drafts right now, and he's got very clear upside this season, especially with touchdowns, which no one is going to think. People are not going to draft him because they think he has no role in the red zone because he has 2 career touchdowns, including 0 last season. No, he's got the biggest red zone role on this team. He's just gotten super unlucky. That's going to change this season. He's going to score touchdowns. He's going to be good in fantasy. Final player we have is the running back position winner. And I struggled to find the name here. My general strategy, as you guys know, is targeting running back early, but I said that basically all early running backs are excluded from this video. And I didn't want to mention CEH, like Miles Sanders, Chase Edmonds, all the people I did, in the running back video last week, because I talked about them recently. So my pool of options was getting thin. I narrowed it down to Ken Walker, James Cook, Rashad White, Ronald Jones, and Darrel Williams. But I've settled on Darrel Williams because I basically sat there and I tried to think about the path that each one of these players has to truly breaking out. If we're looking for upside, I want someone who truly breaks out. Now, obviously, for all of these backs, it's going to require an injury. It is extremely unlikely that for all these running backs that no one gets hurt and they just take over. So then I thought, okay, who would, assuming all the starters went down, who would post the best numbers on this list? First thing that did come to mind for me was Walker. I feel like he should be ranked first, though the argument comes in, well, we're not even guaranteed he's going to be the starting running back if that happens. He'll be the starting running back, but not like the only running back. There's no guarantee that they would completely feature him if that happens. And also, well, Seattle's going to be terrible. So his ceiling is somewhat capped. Maybe he isn't the most valuable if starter here would be Penny goes down. So then I shift over to Rashad White, and I was like, okay, that's a ton of upside on Tampa Bay, pass catching back. But who knows? They've been talking up Keyshawn Vaughn as a pass catcher, and I know Vaughn's not that good, but they've been talking him up, and we don't know because we haven't seen White in the offense yet. We don't know if he would completely be featured. And so I keep going through all the names, and there are different things that are negatives for them that could arise if the starter went down. And I land on Darrel Williams, who's by far the cheapest in terms of ADP in this grouping. And then I was thinking, does he have the most upside if James Conner went down? Maybe. He's pretty clearly their second best running back on the roster. And we've seen him be highly productive in fantasy with a starting role. He's more than capable to goal line, highly efficient in the receiving game. He racked up over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns last season. I think many people forget that. And I was honestly surprised when I saw those numbers. Over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns just last season. And he's the 52nd running back off the board. You don't need him to produce weekly for you at 52. He's riding your bench on Underdog. You don't need him to put up numbers, yet there's a chance he does. Even with James Conner healthy, you have to think he's going to be using the pass catching role. He can stay on the field in 2-minute drill. He can stay on the field if he happens to be in that pass catching role. They want to play fast. They get to the goal line. Many times they took Chase Edmonds out in those situations, brought James Conner in. They might not do that for Williams because he's good at the goal line. And then you think the upside? Yeah, Conner goes down and they feature this kid. We've already seen it. We've seen it in Kansas City. This is a really good offense. You don't usually find players with that much upside on offenses this good for players who have already produced in the past, including just last season, who have been talked up by Patrick Mahomes on how good they were. You don't find those players outside the top 50 running backs. So those are 5 players with massive upside this season. If you want to see a much larger list, just head on over to the rankings page, any of the rankings pages on our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. Filter by value, filter by fire, whatever you want to do. You're going to see my favorite picks for your exact scoring format and league size, along with their exact projections as well. Changing rankings for league size is very important, and you're not going to find that anywhere else in the industry. So getting it at the cheapest cost as well is a pretty unfair advantage. Give yourself that edge, especially when you're able to pair it with all the draft strategy content on the site as well. So make sure you check that out, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. Give yourself a massive edge over the field. That, my friends, is the end of this one. Hope you all enjoyed. If you did, how about hitting the like button and how about subscribing to the channel if you're new here? Thanks for watching.